Family to Family is built upon the premise that children need families, and that families need the strength and protection of strong communities, and that what we need to do in the child welfare arena is to build partnerships with families and especially with communities in which families live.
Often when we talk about partnerships and bridging the relationship between communities and public systems, everyone's in agreement. It's a great idea. When we start to challenge ourselves in changing our roles to accept other people's thoughts, values, in a meeting where we obviously are supposed to have the control and power, it becomes a little deeper now, because partnerships in child protection are critical to better outcomes for children and their families.
So one of the things that Family to Family has been most focused on is coming up with a different way of making the most critical decisions that public child welfare systems make. And those are typically the ones around placement of children. When and under what circumstances do we remove children from their families? How can we make sure we only do that when it's the only way to ensure that a child is safe? When do we reunify kids once we've taken them from their families? And how can we make sure we're doing that at the right time, when the situation is truly safe, when the family is really ready and very supported in making that reunification successful. Team decision-making grew out of concerns for the quality and the consistency of placement-related decision-making.
It's hard sometimes when a supervisor and a social worker feel like they're making a decision kind of in a vacuum. Whereas with this process, you feel like everybody had a say-so, everybody got to speak their piece, and the decision was made fairly.
So whereas a worker and a supervisor might have made those decisions somewhat in isolation before, they really have sort of a backup and a real process that helps guide their decisions.
The goal is to make the best possible decision, which is usually dependent on having the maximum amount of information available at the time you've got to make the decision. One of the critical benefits of making a decision in this way is that lots more information tends to come out by bringing this circle of people to a table to share what each of them knows, what each of them feels or thinks about a resolution, especially the family. And then crafting a decision and a plan to support that decision together. Team decision-making works well only if families believe sincerely that they are a part of this decision, that the decision is being made with them and not for them, and that the decision is alive. When everyone entered the room, there wasn't a decision yet, but in fact what went on in that meeting truly impacted whether or not their child would be removed, reunified, moved to another family home. Families won't come to the table if they don't believe that we are making the decision with them right now at this table.
Welcome. Thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Mariana Zatello and I'm a facilitator with our agency. We're here today for what's called a staffing, which is basically a meeting that we have when we gather together as a team with family members and members of our community in order to discuss issues specifically related to possible placement needs of your son Tony. And any information that we discuss, we do consider to be held private and personal. My role is to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. So before we go any further, why don't we have everyone introduce themselves?
My name is Doreen Piazza. I'm from the West Side Community House. I've known the Davis family for quite some time now, and I'm here to be a support to their family.
Jamie Davis, I'm Tony's mother.
Irvin Davis, I'm Tony's father.
I'm Mrs. Myrna Davis, and Irvin is my son, and of course Tony is my grandson.
I'm James Lalo, the social worker that was on duty last night at the emergency room.
Lisa Stevens-Cutner, I'm the supervisor for the social worker assigned to the family.
And I'm Marquita Dorsey, I'm the ongoing social worker assigned to the family.
In these meetings, we like to give everyone an opportunity to be heard.
Let's see what Ms. Dorsey has to say first.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Davis, I've been working with you for a couple of weeks now surrounding some issues relating to Tony's care and Mrs. Davis, your postpartum depression. The reason why I invited you here today was because I received a report that last night you took Tony into the emergency room with a high fever and a rash. And that's good that you took him in. What happened at the hospital is Mr. and Mrs. Davis came in. Both of them appeared to be intoxicated. They brought Tony in because he had a high fever and a rash. And while there, hospital personnel saw Mr. Davis being very overbearing and very dominant over her, and she told some hospital personnel that she felt very overwhelmed with the care of Tony and that sometimes she felt that she might hurt him.
I do have some concerns from last night. It's not unusual after you've had a baby to have postpartum depression, or what they call the baby blues. We're concerned about how that might affect your ability to care for Tony. In addition to that, myself and some of the staff on the floor last night smelled alcohol on both your breaths. That, in conjunction with some of the depression, kind of makes us concerned. In addition to that, we're also concerned about some possible tension in your relationship or how you guys relate with each other. If you have
Wait a minute. What does that have to do with our child? You all don't understand. I love my child, my family. I work hard, long hours, just to make sure that they're taken care of. So what if I drink a beer? I'm entitled to drink a beer as long as my child is taken care of, my family is well provided for.
He does. He works.
Oftentimes, if you attend to some of the family members' feelings of anxiety, or if they may feel upset, and if you can pretty much give them an opportunity to express that, it can be a real turning point for you in that meeting. Because if they feel they are being heard and that they are not ignored, then they can stop and really start to listen and understand a little bit more fully what people that are present have to say. And I feel they also feel as though we are listening to what they have to say.
The family-to-family model uses a skilled and a trained facilitator to provide guidance to the team meetings. We recommend using a person who has substantial experience working for the agency already.
So my job is really to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak and share information and help build consensus among all the members of that meeting.
Mrs. Davis, what are you really feeling here? What do you need from us?
I don't know what I need. I just want my baby. That's all I want.
At the particular time, I was drinking too. And I was afraid that something might happen that I wouldn't be able to control. Or to try to explain to them. I couldn't explain situations at that time because I was so deep in my depression. I had no conversation for anybody.
You know, I've known Jamie for a while now. This is not like her. She's going through a lot right now. I think if we could all be a little bit more patient with her, she will open up.
My role in the meeting with the Davis family, the team decision-making meeting, was to pretty much be there, a support to the family, to hopefully be able to offer some services to the family, which would help to maybe prevent Tony from being removed in the first place, and at the same time to offer some services to Jamie to support her through the things that she's been going through.
One of the things with family to family is that it has drawn the community into some of these decisions more so than they had been.
The community is a very integral part of our decision-making process. We invite them to the table to participate, and some of our most valuable information comes from the sources who either already have awareness of the family or certainly know what services are available that would be appropriate for the family's needs. And it also helps link up the families with services right away.
When an agency invites others to its table to make its most critical decisions, it lays itself open to criticism. On the other hand, it's a tremendous trust builder, because in being so open, in sharing a critical decision with partners, an agency allows others to understand the complexity of the decisions it makes. Suddenly some trust starts to build. People start to have a little bit more supportive attitude toward your public child welfare agency, which is helpful to all of us.
It just feels, it feels like it's a better decision because it was made with as much input as we could possibly do.
Another really strong value in team decision making is straight talk, candid communication. And a big challenge is to remain strengths-based while at the same time being absolutely honest with a family about what you're concerned about.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Davis, let's start with your strengths, because I see a number of them, some of which is your attachment to Tony. I know you love your baby. I've seen you interact with him, and I know the love is there. Another good thing is your stable employment. You're able to take care of your family and provide Tony and your wife with all life's necessities. You also have the support of Mrs. Davis, and you have community support. Those are all
We
really good
do not
things.
say things outside the room regarding the situation that we're unwilling to say in the family's presence. Trust is built in the belief that I'm hearing everything you have to say about me here in this room. That is a real core principle of team decision making.
Some of the concerns that I have are your depression, because it may interfere with your ability to take care of Tony. Another is that you're at work all day long and she's isolated at home with the baby all by herself. The alcohol, I don't know if it is or it isn't a problem.
Sometimes family members, if we give them an opportunity to just talk among themselves, they may come up with a decision or an alternative for their child that really fits in with what our ideas may be, but that really they have taken ownership for and maybe they have actually initiated. And those can be some very good decisions for their children.
I don't understand what's wrong with my wife. All I know is that I want my wife to get better so we can keep our family together.
I've seen some serious situations come through the hospital related to postpartum depression, and we're really concerned about a parent who has this kind of depression being able to take care of their child safely. That child may need to be removed from that situation until the parent is able to get their depression under control. Until then, I'm not sure that the child can be safe.
Our first concern is always going to be Tony's safety, but we also have to look at what effect removal of Tony from his parents is going to have on him. We need to look at his bonding with his mother and make sure that we consider all these areas before we look at removing him from the home.
Maybe we should think about considering a short-term placement so that Mrs. Davis could focus more on recovering from her depression. Even if today the decision that's made here is to remove Tony from the home, we'll stick together and we will work on reunifying.
You know, I'm hearing a lot of important things come up here. On the one hand, I'm hearing the family, you know, has a very strong attachment to their son, obviously, and you obviously love him very much. And I'm also hearing that some members of the community have some concerns about whether or not Tony can be safe at home, and also some support that may be available from the neighborhood as well. So I'm wondering, if we were to consider Tony staying in the home with a safety plan, what would that look like?
You know, we here at Westside Community House, we offer a lot of services that are supportive for our families from the neighborhood.
We don't assume that a really good decision is always to keep the family together or is always to remove a child. A good decision is one that brings in the maximum amount of information, that ensures active participation, a comfort level from the parents that allows them to feel a strong voice in the process. Those are the things that make for a good process. In the end, the agency does own its decision. However, it's a very different message to family and community to undertake that process in a participative fashion.
I think some of the benefits of utilizing a team approach to decision making for families is to give them an opportunity to hear, you know, from either the agency's point of view or maybe those in the community who are aware of the family, you know, what their position is and what their feelings are. And it gives the family an opportunity to share information as well, which gives our agency more confidence in making an appropriate decision.
One of the things that I learned going through to this meeting was that I had put my child in risk. I didn't understand me being depressed would put my child at risk.
The team decision-making meetings are happening more and more now in the community. It's really a benefit for the families. It's close to the families where they live. It's a much more comfortable atmosphere. It begins that relationship with the parents and the community agency. So down the road, when Children and Family Services are no longer involved with the family, they're connected to a neighborhood center that they can kind of call on in case they need someone.
My unit, we work with the Westside Community House, and we work basically in the near West Side. Our population on the West Side is very diverse, and we have a large Latino population. So our staff coming out to the West Side actually gives us an opportunity to embrace the cultures and actually know about the cultures. What we're doing right now is we're trying to form a relationship and a trust partnership with them so that they can see that we're there to help them, and what we don't know about their culture, we want to learn about their culture.
Benefits for a team decision making from a supervisory standpoint is that it's a really good opportunity for me to observe my worker. In this field, we have a lot of turnover with social workers. In the team meeting, I can watch them and see how they interact with families, what kind of rapport they establish with their families, how they present information. There's a facilitator in the team meeting who's usually somebody that's more skilled, more experienced, and so they model a lot of good behavior for workers as far as when they're trying to talk straight with families and tell them exactly what's going on, but not to be disrespectful.
The other idea is that if we must remove a child from their home, then certainly the best place for that child to be is with their own extended family.
One of the big bonuses with Family to Family is that there's a commitment to, if you have to remove a child from their home, you can still keep them in their community. We're finding a lot more foster homes. We've expanded the definition of what really kin is, and so there's a big effort to keep the child, if not in their home, then at least in their community and around the things that are familiar to them.
Our foster parents have often felt a little neglected by the way we do business. When you implement a team decision-making process, you suddenly have a really excellent vehicle to bring foster parents in and to be treated as true partners in the decision-making around the kids that they live with.
Whereas before, your role was kind of given to you. You are the foster parent, and that's it. You raise this child for an undetermined length of time. But now that there is team decision-making, you are part of the decision of what happens to this child.
So team decision-making offers us the opportunity to give a forum and a voice to the people who care for kids who are in temporary care, and for us to begin to offer them some support, to wrap some services around them, perhaps to give them respite care, so that they can maintain a child who may be very difficult to take care of. Keep him in one placement, maximize the chances of him going back home to his family, or if not that, to another permanent family when he can leave the system. And quite often that will be the foster family that's been taking care of him already, if we've adequately supported them.
A lot of times, people don't understand the struggles that people go through, and sometimes you have to walk them and hold their hand until they can walk by themselves. And you know, today I can walk by myself.
So we want team decision-making to be a strategy whereby we keep the spotlight on every child's need to have a permanent family, get the system out of his life, and let him grow up in a family where he's got a much likelier chance of having a healthy adulthood, healthy parenthood, healthy rest of his life.
This whole initiative of becoming more child-focused, family-centered, and community-based in practice means a changing role not only for the public system, but also for our neighborhoods. Together, as partners, we agree that children belong in families, that families need the support of their communities, and that public systems nor neighborhoods can do it alone. It requires all of us to work together.
We are convinced that the building of bridges between families and communities, between communities and child welfare systems, will help us all build better outcomes for children and families in the future.